Immortality, the ability to live forever. Many legends surround the quest for immortality, such as the Fountain of Youth, which is a mystical spring that allegedly restores the youth of anyone who drinks or bathes in its waters. Tales of such fountains have been recounted around the world for thousands of years, appearing in the writings of Herodotus in the 5th century BC and in the stories of Prester John during the early Crusades of the 11th and 12th centuries AD. Stories of similar waters were also widespread among the people of the Caribbean during the Age of Exploration in the 16th century, where legend became particularly prominent when it became associated with the Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon, who was supposedly searching for the Fountain of Youth when he traveled to Florida in 1513. But what if someone had indeed found such an elixir or some other means to accomplish immortality? And what if this person was confirmed to exist by many prominent people in society throughout the centuries? Hence the topic of this episode. This is the bizarre true story of the Count of Saint Germain. But was this man really an immortal, as many had claimed? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, a Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
The Count of Saint Germain was a European adventurer who achieved prominence in European high society of the mid-18th century due to his achievements in science, alchemy, philosophy, and the arts. Records of the Count of Saint Germain start in 18th century Europe, where he begins making appearances at various parties and royal courts. However, some grew suspicious of the man's many talents, good looks, and advanced learning. Many start to wonder who exactly was this mysterious man. Why did he never talk about where he came from, and how did he gain so much knowledge? Why did he keep getting embroiled in different political circles? Perhaps he was a lost prince, a spy, or an occult mastermind who may have indeed uncovered the secrets of eternal life. Could they be possibly right? Though there are plenty of rumors swirling about that complicate the story of Count Saint Germain, the truth is that he was a very real person. Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel is recorded as having called him one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived. Other various notables of the 18th century confirmed his existence. Writer and politician Horace Walpole wrote that the Count of Saint Germain was in London in 1743, and that Saint Germain spoke Italian and French with the greatest facility, though it was evident that neither was his language. He understood Polish and soon learned to understand English and speak it a little, but Spanish or Portuguese seemed his natural language. Saint Germain would soon be arrested on espionage charges, but then quickly let go. This is the first confirmed mention of Saint Germain, who was kicked out of England after his release. Years later, he pops up in the court of French King Louis XV, but after a brief bout with serious political influence and infighting, he fled back to England. Seemingly never wanted to stay in a single place for very long. The Count of Saint Germain was also apparently a real charmer, who impressed not only with his good looks and class, but also skill and intelligence. His reportedly youthful appearance was the likely source of later rumors about his immortality and occult skills. The Count of Saint Germain quickly seemed to gain some devoted admirers. However, there were just as many people who didn't like the Count's reputation at all. The French writer and philosopher Voltaire, already notorious for his razor-sharp wit, turned his acid tongue on the Count of Saint Germain too. Voltaire was skeptical of Germain making waves in Europe's social scene. In a letter addressed to King Frederick of Prussia, Voltaire wrote that Saint Germain would surely meet the monarch eventually. "He is a man who never dies and who knows everything," Voltaire sarcastically remarked. Even the 18th century bad boy, Giacomo Casanova, wrote about Saint Germain in his memoirs. As stated, the most enjoyable dinner I had with the famous adventurer, known by the name of the Count of Saint Germain. This individual, instead of eating, talked from the beginning of the meal to the end. And I followed his example in one respect, as I did not eat, but listened to him with the greatest attention. It may safely be said that as a conversationalist, he was unequaled. Saint Germain gave himself out for a marvel, and always aimed at exciting amazement, which he often succeeded in doing. He was a scholar, linguist, musician, and chemist, good-looking and a perfect ladies' man. He also gained the favor of Madame de Pompadour, the chief mistress of King Louis XV, who had spoken about him to the king, for whom he had made a laboratory. The king had given Saint Germain a suite of rooms at Chambord and 100,000 francs for the construction of a laboratory. This extraordinary man, tended by nature to be the king of impostors and quacks, would say in an easy, assured manner that he was hundreds of years old, that he knew the secret of universal medicine, that he possessed the mastery over nature, and that he could melt diamonds, professing himself capable of forming out of 10 or 12 small diamonds one large one of the finest quality without any loss of weight. Notwithstanding his boastings, his barefaced lies, and his manifold eccentricities, I cannot say I thought him offensive. In spite of my knowledge of what he was, and in spite of my own feelings, I thought him an astonishing man, as he was always astonishing me, concluded Voltaire. Saint Germain was reportedly a lady killer too. Lady Jemima, a London noble and socialist, wrote, "Woe be to the person within the reach of his eye, for he makes love so violently, they must have a most inflexible countenance to stand it." While we can be certain that the Count of Saint Germain was a great storyteller, lover, and someone who was interested in making powerful friends, that's not the real allure of his story for many people. Things get more interesting when we focus on his associations with forbidden knowledge. Some rumors surrounding the Count of Saint Germain claimed that he was an accomplished alchemist who could grow both diamonds and produce gold from lead. Some even claimed that he had connections to the secret brotherhoods, including the Illuminati, the Templars, and the Freemasons. One of the key facets of the Count of Saint Germain's story is the claim that he was very old. Some people went so far as to speculate that the Count had a history that could well stretch back a millennia, because he even hinted that he met Jesus Christ. Was he possibly the man known as the legendary Wandering Jew? The medieval chronicler Roger of Wendover describes in his Florus Historium how an archbishop from Greater Armenia, visiting England in 1228, reported that there was in Armenia a man formerly called Cartaphilus, who claimed he had been Pontius Pilate's doorkeeper and had struck Jesus on his way to Calvary, urging Jesus to go faster. Jesus apparently replied, "I go, and you will wait till I return," cursing Cartaphilus to roam the earth until Jesus' second coming. Could this be the Count of Saint Germain's origin story? Was there anyone of importance that confirmed his immortality? While in Paris, in 1760, Countess von Georgi heard that the Count of Saint Germain had arrived for a soirée at the home of Madame de Pompadour. The elderly countess was curious because she had known a Count of Saint Germain while in Venice in 1710. Upon meeting the Count again, she was astonished to see that he hadn't appeared to age, and asked him if it was his father she knew in Venice. "No, madame," he replied, "but I myself was living in Venice at the end of the last and the beginning of this century. I had the honor to pay you court then." "Forgive me, but that is impossible," the perplexed countess said. "The Count of Saint Germain I knew in those days was at least 45 years old, and you, at the outside, are that age present." "Madame, I am very old," he said with a knowing smile. "But then you must be nearly 100 years old," said the astonished countess. "That is not impossible," the Count told her matter-of-factly. Then he continued to convince the Countess that he was indeed the same man she knew, with the details of their previous meeting and of life in Venice 15 years earlier. While the Count of Saint Germain spent a few years at the court of Louis XV, he was tasked with carrying out clandestine jobs, which included espionage in England, where the Count would indeed travel after a reported dispute with French officials. He may have done similar work for Germany. Later, allegedly was embroiled with the Russian plot to overthrow Tsar Peter III and replace him with Catherine the Great. Some even go as far as to say that he popped up in France at least once more to warn Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette that the French Revolution was coming for their heads. It appeared to be one of the few political occasions where people didn't listen to him. But according to records, the Count of Saint Germain's end came in 1784 when he was living in the home of Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel in Germany. The prince was by the Count's side when he died and heard an astonishing confession there. Reportedly, Saint Germain admitted that he was actually a deposed Transylvanian prince named Francis Rákóczi II. Francis claimed to have earned a fantastic education at the University of Siena, explaining his good manners and serious learning. And there really was a Francis Rákóczi II, but he died in 1735. So the timelines and the calculated ages of the two men don't line up, leading many to believe that Saint Germain was still obscuring the truth for some unknown reason. Even though death seems pretty final, in the case of the Count of Saint Germain, things don't end here. The first reciting of the Count of Saint Germain after his death took place in 1785 when he was spotted with hypnotist Anton Mesmer, Germany. The meeting was kept in the strictest confidence by both men, though it appears they discussed the highest aspects of magnetism and the need to sever completely animal magnetism from the magnet, whatever that means. That same year, the Count was reportedly chosen as a Freemason representative for a convention. He also reportedly popped up in the aftermath of the fall of Bastille, holding conversations with the French noble Countess d'Adhémar, where he claimed to predict France's future after the incredible upheaval of the French Revolution. The Countess then claimed to see him on a few more occasions until 1820, writing that each time she met with the man she believed to be Saint Germain, he never seemed to age a day. By the 19th century, people had begun to suspect that the Count of Saint Germain may be cheated death and had started a new life under a different name, Major Fraser. Fraser was also highly accomplished and liked to hint that he had come about his knowledge through interactions with historical personages like the ancient Roman Emperor Nero or the medieval Italian poet Dante. Later, towards the end of the 19th century, the mystic Helena Blavatsky assured people that Saint Germain was still kicking and pushing for a better spiritual awareness. Eventually, he became a key figure of Blavatsky's theosophy practice as well as other metaphysical disciplines. Later, the legend of Saint Germain would pop up again in one of the wildest stories linked to the man, as a mysterious bloody vampire. The legend holds that a man going by the name Jacques of Saint Germain appeared in New Orleans in 1904. He set up a home in a house that soon became known for its parties. Only it is said that Saint Germain was never seen eating or drinking. Eventually, a sex worker jumped from the second-floor balcony to escape and told the police that Saint Germain had attempted to drink her blood. Police were skeptical, but when they tried to track down Saint Germain to get more information, they found that he had disappeared. Left behind in the mansion were bloodstains and various vessels filled with blood. The police found clothes from a variety of eras, also apparently stained with blood, while there was an alarming lack of food anywhere in the home. Saint Germain himself was never seen again in New Orleans. Finally, the last person to gain some level of widespread attention for a supposed connection to the Count of Saint Germain was a 20th century Frenchman known as Richard Chanfray. During the 1970s, Chanfray began appearing on television, claiming to be the Count, and supposedly demonstrating the ability to transmute lead into gold in front of an audience. However, Chanfray later died by suicide in 1983. Or was this just a ruse as well? Is Saint Germain still alive, living under another identity? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.